The other day, my boys were talking about how their daddy had a daddy, and well, his daddy had a daddy, and can you believe it? Even his daddy had a daddy. So there was just this line of daddies. Now, to me, this seemed normal, but to them, it was fascinating. And in all honesty, just because it's normal doesn't mean it's not profound. It is profound because there's a tremendous amount of generational momentum that if we are ignorant of, we will really lose some clarity and insights on what's happening in our present. You see, family forms and shapes our heart in the very absorbent years of life. About 0 to 6, our main influences are mother, father, maybe grandparents, brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins. These people tend to have the most profound effect when we are in the absorbent stage, or the stage where our heart and mind and body is still really forming and absorbing its reality. This is why children will typically believe very easily what you tell them. If you tell them that they're smart or they're dumb, they'll tend to actually believe you because they're absorbent in this stage. Now tell someone that at 35 and you'll see them either deflect or receive based upon typically the training that they had and experiences that they had in those absorbent years. So what happens in those absorbent years is so profound that there's even an ancient proverbial wisdom that says basically the way you train your child in its younger years, when they're old, they're not even going to depart from it. This is the profound experience that shapes and builds generational momentum. Because the family has such influence on us during these prime years of life where we are forming and wiring our heart and our mind, our very being, our relational and emotional sense of the world, then we will continue to build upon and develop those very same patterns, typically later on in life. Now, what could this mean? Well, it could mean you got some really, really good stuff going for you. If you are here and alive today, that means your family has figured some stuff out and has downloaded to you a bunch of information and ways of relating that will keep you going. 2, it could mean that you most likely have some dysfunction because in order for your family to survive certain experiences, they adapted in ways that were not necessarily the most proficient or helpful because they just pulled on the resources they had at the time or pulled on past generational momentum that itself could have been dysfunctional. So you got some really amazing things going for you. You got some things that probably could be better assessed and readjusted. And you've got a sacred space called family that is going to allow you to have an influence on the upcoming generations. You're going to be able to influence whether it's your very own kids or kids that you are in very close contact with during those very formative years with some real momentum and hopefully for the ultimate best. Let's just take a minute to look at why generation after generation after generation tend to have very much similarities. One, we see that like produces like. Apple trees tend to produce more apple trees, and blueberry bushes tend to make more blueberry bushes. We tend to replicate because it's working for us. Now, sometimes we find that these patterns are not necessarily working as well in our current situation or workplace, or maybe even in the current societal culture that we're in. And we need to make some relational and emotional adjustments from the very core. This is where we come to terms with, even as a child is trained in its youth, when it's old, it will not depart from it. But there are exceptions. We can actually retrain our very neurobiology, even the very core ways our brain and our body and our heart is wired. And that's why at Art of the Heart, I love being able to work with people at re-navigating the very formative years of their life to make the alignments and adjustments. See, our families are sacred places because they're intended to be places of unconditional love. And sometimes our families are too distracted, maybe have some levels of dysfunction or misunderstanding, and they're not able to necessarily build as deep a foundation as necessary. Actually, even Christ said that everyone must be born again and everyone must become like a child to even experience and enter into the things the kingdom of heaven have to offer it. To be a son and daughter of kingdom, we've got to actually retrain ourselves as little children would, in a very absorbent way, where these things become such truth to our heart, our soul, our mind, our being. This is one of the most beautiful things that can happen, is our hearts, our minds, our emotions and souls can be transformed, can be shifted, if we're willing to be vulnerable enough, like children again. Now, I'm not saying this vulnerability needs to play itself out in every situation, in every way. The sessions are actually designed to create spaces for vulnerability and the shifts that help you align with love in its fullest capacity, as well as align with things that are going to be working for you in a way that really honors your true nature and what you want to invest in the future generations that are before you. So, generational momentum is incredibly normal, but it's incredibly profound. We are going to produce what we are, not what we say, not what we hope, not what we bless even our next generation with, but what we are. What we are will be replicated in the hearts and minds and emotions of those who are entrusted to us at very young ages. The dysfunction that we see in our family heritage or generational momentum is not a place for dishonor. It's a place for recognition. It's a place to say, because I can see more clearly what the dysfunction is, I actually have an opportunity to release, forgive, clarify, and redefine for the future generations. We honor our heritage the best by making the most use of the resources, opportunities, and insights that we can have in the present, by acknowledging that they gave us what they had and that we are required to really own our place in this progression and give the next generation even more of what we believe could contribute to the legacy and heritage that they will build upon. This is because the launching pad of these early formative years are so instrumental in who we become and how we relate to the world. I don't want us to overlook how important childhood, and the very childlike nature of our very own hearts is. I want to encourage you to get into Art of the Heart, to get into your very tender and childlike nature of your heart and make the shifts in you, so the shifts in the next generation will capitalize on all this fantastic generational momentum of blessings you have, minimize those dysfunctions, and empower family to be more and more of a sacred place that allows the foundation of love to be built unconditionally, deeply, and aligned with what you're experiencing through your own life. Join Art of the Heart, engage, stay connected, and let your heart align with love so your whole being and your whole future family line can blossom.